keynote because they're, oh, I see Achim here. Oh, you're finished.
Okay. Okay. Is there an introduction, or I can just start?
You can start.
Okay.
Just tell about the meeting that will be.
Yes, I know, yeah. Okay. Welcome, everybody. After a couple of interesting keynotes, I think I have the honor to talk about OSGeo and Inspire. First of all, thank you again, Guimarães, to host our conference. I didn't have the opportunity yet to visit the center, but I will start with this opportunity from this night on and take some personal pictures of the beautiful city. What I want to talk about is about OSGeo, and because the topic of this conference is remembering how we started, I want to start with the past, I want to talk about the present, and of course I want to think a bit about the future. Actually, I looked up two quotes, and from quantum mechanics, we think that past, present, and future, they all exist together, actually. And another definition says, okay, you have past, present, and future. That's a concept where we know best how the past is. There is a very uncertain present, and the future, that's the unknown. So let's start with the easy part, the past. Remembering how we started. I think it was all about software development. It was about tribes of developers finding each other. it was about start to share ideas and know-how and events. And I think that is how FOSS4G was born. Actually, I took this information from the website, and today, after the presentation of Stephen, I think tribes should be better changed by community. Because remember, with the community, the identity of the individual is more important than the identity of the group. So the past, another thing that I got it from the website, the conference aims to bring together the European FOSS4G community. It's not an academic, neither a business event. It's a community event to support face-to-face meetings and discussions, to foster interactions, to share knowledge and passion. That's interesting. What is it? What is this conference? It's not a business event, it's not an academic event. A first question, did we enjoy the conference until now? Who enjoyed the conference until now? Okay, so we're bringing people together face to face. Jeff McKenna, a past president of this organization, once said, and I think he's right, it's all about the community. So I will zoom a bit into that later in the presentation. And another thing, we should think global and act local is a saying in the world that is also something very useful for OSGeo. But okay, get on with the past. Remembering how we started. Well, actually, we start with creating local chapters, because in a global world, we are talking all different languages. And okay, I'm not native speaking English, and most of us are not, but by English we can understand each other. But luckily for us, there is a Spanish chapter, a Portuguese chapter, a Dutch chapter. There are today more than 50 local chapters. We started also with committees to share experience. Some people are better in marketing, and others are better in creating a website, doing some tech stuff for helping out the OSGeo. And we started with local FOSS4G conferences. 10 years ago, we only had the global conference. Today, almost every week, there is somewhere in the world a FOSS4G conference. And we start with global initiatives, regional initiatives, and really very small local initiatives, which I think are very important. And at last, a lot of fun, a lot of energy, a lot of free, question mark. Joachim told me that in Czech Republic, the beer is free. So I suggest to organize a FOSS4G there. And pizza. Actually, I had one FOSS4G event where the beer was really free. It was 4 years ago on the conference in Bremen during the previous World Championship, and they had beer for everybody free of charge. Joachim, you want to say something? Sorry? Okay, but yeah, the beer was free, but I didn't. There were too many people, too less beers. What is also very important is, I think, the opportunity to take local initiatives. I think that is something very important in a community like OSGeo. And then, 2 years ago, OSGeo celebrates his 10th anniversary. We started with new branding, a new style guide, a new website, a new vision and mission. And actually, the slides I'm presenting, I've used the new style guide, which is online available, and I want to how do you say that? Sorry? to help not, but to stimulate everybody to use the new brand, because it's really a good help to give presentations. But this gives me the opportunity to give the vision and mission of OSGeo. Actually, OSGeo is a non-for-profit software foundation. What they do is, well, they provide financial, organizational, and legal support. We do also outreach and advocacy. So we promote global adoption of open source geospatial technology. And what is, in my opinion, the most important item of OSGeo, it's a volunteer-driven organization. That means that all the members of OSGeo are individuals and are volunteer individual. Of course, in our professional life, we belong to other parts in society, like an academic researcher or a business person or from a government. But in essence, in OSGeo, we are all individuals, and that makes the organization strong. And this brings me to the present. And okay, the present, that's today, that's this evening. I think it's some time to do some exercise. I remember from the keynote this morning, he did some exercise. So we will do also some exercise. I have some questions. Yesterday morning, I asked who was new, for who is this FOSS4G conference, the first conference. Can you raise your hand, please? Okay, so a lot of people, so I think almost 50% of the people attending here are for the first time coming to a FOSS4G conference. A question to this group. When I go to other FOSS4G conferences, afterwards people say, wow, this was an interesting event. People are talking, giving presentations which were very interesting. I learned a lot. Was this the case? Did you enjoy? I asked already, but from those people, did you enjoy this conference? Not everybody. Okay, then we have a problem. Or you are tired. So the question is, who are we? Who are we today? Well, are we a group of developers? Who from here in this conference is a developer? Can you stand up, please? Who is developing software? Okay, almost 50%. Who is not a developer? Can you stand up, please? No, I have to see everybody moving, otherwise you're asleep. Okay. There are still some people that didn't move. Are you a group of professors or academia? Who is from academical world? Please raise your hand. That's not so much. I thought we were a bit more from academia in this conference. But okay, who are the self-deployed or the consultants in this room? Raise your hand, please. Okay, so who have friends here in this room? Okay, good. Who are the students of this community? Who is still studying? So this is a missing part. There are no students here. In other FOSS4G conferences, there are students, so we should think about that to invite them also. Who is working for a non-for-profit organization, an NGO, a research institute? Please raise your hand. Okay, I think 30%. Good. That was the exercise. So actually, what I want to say is this is only one of the FOSS4G conferences. If you imagine there are almost every week a FOSS4G conference somewhere in the world. OSGeo, after 12 years, has grown in a large network organization. And there are today more than 50 local chapters. We create local chapters today on a more political level. So we created last year OSGeo-Europe. I think a couple of months ago, OSGeo North America was created. I think there was another one created a couple of weeks ago. And I think there will be more to come. OSGeo is active in several partner organizations. OGC, who doesn't know OGC from this room? Everybody knows OGC, the Open Standard Organization. We are active in several organizations like the UN. We set up partnerships, and there are new challenges that appear, like the code of conduct. So the question is, what binds us together? We are a very, very diverse group. Actually, I think the only thing that binds us together, that is open source software for geo and location. And as in the keynote of yesterday evening, Stephen told us, this is from several perspectives. I can mention a couple of them. Some of us, we had to prove, are developers. Others are, I forgot the group, the users, very important, the students, the professors, and so on and so on. OSGeo is a community that is willing to promote open source software from different perspectives. What is in for us? And this brings us to the one candle. OSGeo-Europe is within 3 days exactly 1 year old. And so I want to invite everybody to the OSGeo-Europe General Assembly. It's not in this room, it's at 6:30, and it will be in the Palazzo just outside here, where we will have a meeting about the activities we did the first year and how we want to progress next year. But let me start to tell you about a challenge. When I came back from the FOSS4G conference in Belgium, there was a guy from a municipality. Actually, he was responsible for 30 municipalities. And it was also his first time he came to a FOSS4G event. And he asked me, this was really interesting. I had a lot of energy. Can you come? I will organize an event for more than 20 municipalities. They will all come, all the GIS responsibles. Can you come and give a workshop? Because we want to know a bit more about open source. So I went there and I told them about OSGeo. I told them about OSGeo Live, about the different projects. When do you want to use which project? And I came to a couple of strange conclusions. The people I'm talking to didn't know about open source. It was for them the first time. They were amazed if they saw the OSGeo Live environment with all the solutions. They didn't understand when they had to use open layers or GeoServer or whatever of the or the more than 50 projects on OSGeo Live environment. One thing in that area in Belgium, they understood. They knew what QGIS was, and they were users of QGIS. Most of them knew about QGIS, which was good, because before they were using other proprietary software. So I started to explain them when to choose which project. And after the second workshop, they asked me, oh, can you do more? And I told them, I don't want to do more. Because in the room, there were very smart people, and people were already there was one community knowing about GeoServer and doing some things, and another doing something with open layers, and another doing something with R. So I told them, okay, the next event that you organize, please present yourself and organize yourself. So I went to the third workshop, and they did it. And then I invited them to the next FOSS4G conference. I say, okay, please join us. And that is also a message here, because there are a lot of Portuguese members here. If you organize the next FOSS4G conference, please invite other people coming to the FOSS4G conference. organize a call for papers and present and share information with each other. I think this is the real core of OSGeo. Another thing that was remarkable, that is, they didn't only knew the software, they had very simple problems, and they couldn't manage these problems, although these were GIS professionals. For instance, they have a data set and they want to publish it on the web. This was a problem, a major problem. I think most of the people in the room can solve that. They were asking themselves, how can we solve that? The question is, how can we as a community help them? Do we want to help them? Well, in the original spirit of the developer communities, we started to help them out. So in the spirit of, if I put my time in something because I can help it, maybe somebody else will help me when I need some help. And this works. This is how community is working. The question is, how do we scale that to in the future? How do we reach other people? How can we support this? Well, yesterday there was a B2B mix in the youth hotel, and there were some presentations, and one of the presentations were very interesting. OpenGeo Labs, which is an initiative of a couple of persons out of the community, organize themselves to give workshops, to teach and to bring that material online, all open, but they also organize these workshops. And they try to help people, and they have to pay them for that, which is normal, but I think that's a good start. And I know there are also other initiatives. I can name another presentation yesterday was Geomatico from in Spain, I think. And also, for instance, the OpenGeo group in the Netherlands. And I'm sure there are many, many more initiatives. So if you know about an initiative, please come and tell it to me. And even better, we will put it on the website of OSGeo-Europe so that we can help people to learn about open source and how to spread the word. Another thing from the last couple of FOSS4G conferences in Europe were the topic talks. Topic talks are the events where we can, as a community, take a specific topic that has not immediately something to do with a specific project, but is cross-project and has to do about what the community should do, how we should evolve. I think we should reintroduce these topic talks in the next FOSS4G conferences. And these are just a couple of small examples. But I think which is more important, as an organization, as a community in Europe, we have to look for opportunities. And I think there are big opportunities. For instance, if you see this picture, this is a picture of, and now I borrowed a couple of slides from, in this case, from GRC, the Joint Research Center. And it's part of a presentation about OSGeo, about Inspire. This is a picture of power plugs worldwide. And the power plugs that are with the circle around them are the European ones. And if you look at it, it's a mess. So that's the reason we need standards. And that's also the reason we need standards and harmonization about data. And that's why we need an SDI, and a harmonized data set. And I think Europe is working on this already for more than 15 years, 20 years. But this is a huge project. They're not advancing very fast, but they are advancing. And there is a huge number of data providers, and they are all working on it. And there is also legislation. For instance, today, for the metadata, there are more than 10,000 services for the download services and with the viewable downloads. Every part of what has to be delivered in Inspire is growing. And this is from the governmental point of view. This data should also be used in all-day life. And I think there is a big opportunity. And what we can do with OSGeo is to try to go for that opportunity and to look how we can improve our services and our software and our projects so that we can help this community providing this data and this harmonization. So if we type in OSGeo if we type in Inspire on the OSGeo website and we create a word diagram out of it, well, then you see already a couple of matches and a couple of terms very close to OSGeo. So one of the things that we took as initiative with OSGeo-Europe is one of the major, in my eyes, the major products of OSGeo. And yesterday I met the spiritual father of that product, which is OSGeo Live, which came into life, I think, more than, about 10 years ago. What we did was we tried to create a flavor of OSGeo Live for Inspire. So we address the European ecosystem, the data providers, the people who are involved with Inspire. We tell them about OSGeo Live, and we also try to address the different projects of OSGeo. And in the next OSGeo Live, which is now emerging, we ask to create specific use cases and data sets and ways how to solve Inspire solutions. And I think if we do that on a consistent way, that could help. In that way, more and more OSGeo software would be used. And I think it's on the OSGeo industry to provide services so that there exists single points of contact to deliver services for the people needing them. So I think OSGeo can there become OSGeo Live as a product can become a bridge between OSGeo and the Inspire community. I think that's very important. Okay, coming back to what binds us together. Well, I think that FOSS4G should be fun and should give energy. And when I go to a FOSS4G conference, I always return with a lot of ideas and with a lot of energy. So this is a photo from the FOSS4G conference in Como. And as here, it is a community of several stakeholders, several perspectives. So FOSS4G is actually a conference that is with the audience of people already knowing OSGeo, already knowing open source. What we should do, and we took an initiative for that also, and is we should go outside. If you think about the whole spectrum, I think less than 1% are people knowing about open source software. Can be amazing if you are here in this conference where everybody knows that, but in fact, a lot of people doesn't care and doesn't know. So what I want to do, and this is a draft diagram of an ID, which I tried to realize, is from the OSGeo perspective, creating the OSGeo ecosystem. And you see several icons, and there are icons for academic, there are an icon for government, there is an icon for the industry. And the academic, they have the students to reach out to, and we have Geo4All, which does that. And the government has a lot of users that they have to reach out to. And then the industry can provide services. And actually, for the Inspire conference, which is this year in Belgium, I tried to find a couple of specific parties that could fill in these specific icons. So I reached out to the University of Leuven, and they are willing to stand on a booth of OSGeo. And I went out to the region of Flanders, and they also will be on the same booth. And then I sent a message in the European Discuss list, and I got some reactions from GeoSolutions, from Geospark, from Latlon, from Grid, and they all are going to be on that booth. And actually, I can show you a design about how the booth should look like. So this was my own draft. This is by designer, and you can see the ecosystem of OSGeo in a sort of marketplace. In the middle you have a marketplace with all the individuals, the OSGeo members and the people and the citizens working together as one ecosystem and based on open standards, open data, open software, and then get involved, collaborate, present Geo for All, doing research together, using European programs, and so on. This is just a draft, but the idea is, if that action of OSGeo is successful, I want to use it throughout Europe and ask for universities where we have events and regions and administrations and companies who want to join to promote OSGeo. The story is that every partner on the booth has to tell why he is involved in OSGeo. And then he can promote his own service or what he does for the students or how he's using open source software for his administration. What we still need is a website. So there is an OSGeo website, and for OSGeo-Europe, the only thing we have is a wiki, which we can use for internal communication. That's wiki.osgeo./Europe. So I want to invite everybody who has time on the Code Sprint Friday to start working on a branch of the OSGeo website, which will handle the specific European local chapter. So talking about Friday, this brings us to the future. What binds us together from the several initiatives? Well, actually, open source software for geo and location. Now, I think there are a lot of developers, but I'm not sure if we all know or are aware what is free and open source software. And as there are a lot of new people in this room, I think it's necessary that we also bring that message. Free as in free beer? Not really, it's more free as in freedom of speech. In Spanish, it's better, it's libre. So I will repeat why open source software is important. First of all, we should have the freedom to run software as we wish. And we should have the freedom to study the software and to change it and to use to our own needs. Therefore, access is necessary. And we need the freedom to redistribute the software and the copies so that we can help others. And we should also have the freedom to modify the versions and distribute the software. And on this way, we give the chance to the whole community to benefit of our own changes. Access to the source code is important for that. And actually, this is what OSGeo is doing. OSGeo is a software foundation, and we are responsible for supporting our great and collection of projects. Today there are, I think, between 20 and 30 OSGeo projects, incubated projects, and I do want to ask if there are new initiatives and new projects, please reach out to OSGeo, and we will, with a lot of pleasure, look at your software. OSGeo supports the projects on a legal manner, on a technical manner. There are a lot of very good software developers with a lot of experience in open source software. And we are very professional in going and handling open source software. But what is software? That is a strange, silly question on a developer conference. Well, actually, I needed this slide because I wanted to introduce at least one slide for Maria, the president of this. So, software is eating the world, and actually, it depends, and this is my cat in my presentation. Actually, depending on how you view the world, you model the world, you use, well, software as a language to talk to machines. And today, software is used for machines to talk to each other. And actually, the fuel of software is data. And the data is provided by sensors. And we are a very important sensor in this storage. And I think that we should be aware about that, how important software is, and how important it is to keep software open. Because not long ago in GIS, it was all about paper maps and digitizing and simple things. But today, we have an abundance of data. We have devices, we have satellites, sentinels, we have cars moving around, we have every car as a driver, smart cars talking to each other, we have the Internet of Things, we have the human beings acting as sensors. The question is, how are we as a community going to cope with that? Because there are big companies very smart in gathering all that data and gathering all that software and doing very good things with it. But is that a world, is it a world where one company owns everything? Is that a world that we want to go on? If not, I think we should act so that we can get our own software, our own data, and so on. Machine-to-machine communication. Big data challenge. Actually, every second there are petabytes on data generated. I think also it's our responsibility with our community to do some things with that, to make that data available, to use that data for useful purposes, and don't rely on one company or two companies who are providing all these nice services for us. I think we all know what big data is. Big data is not a lot of data. It's a lot of data which changes fast and which has a big velocity. And there is an evolution. As a software programmer, a couple of years ago, software alone was, we could do a lot with software alone. Today, actually, 30 years ago, hardware was unique and software was used to help the hardware manipulating. Afterwards, hardware became a commodity. Today, software is becoming a commodity, and we are creating microservices. Integration becomes a new challenge. Software becomes relevant for almost everything we do in the world. Actually, our lives depend on software. Like a statement, it's the software stupid, instead of it's the economy stupid. We need to make, I think that it's so important that we should try to migrate all the software to open source software. And licenses, in that case, become more and more important. So I think the previous keynote was right in saying that we should take care about attribution, about licenses, about sharing the data and the software. And then the question is, okay, what do we do? What should the future be? And there are a couple of nice hyping words, like deep learning, get connected in IoT, and I think a lot of projects are doing that. But what is our vision? How are we going to create a vision around that? How can we take the lead in the software development roadmap? And with we, I don't only mean OSGeo. I think OSGeo should partner with other open communities so that we can take the lead in this important matter. And of course, as president of OSGeo-Europe, I think what should we do with the software industry, and more specifically with the European software industry? How do we want to organize that? How can we learn to collaborate? So, saying that, I come to the end of my presentation. What is a community? Well, a community is something, a group of people living together, and I think we are all connected through the internet. So we are living together on the internet, and we have a common interest, and it's also an ecological thing. We are dependent on each other. I think that is very important. What is also important is the network. It's all about the network. And I think FOSS4G conferences are the perfect way to network, to get to connect to each other face to face. So if you are convinced and you want to become better involved with OSGeo and you want to come to next FOSS4G conference, what can you do? Well, the first thing is become part of the OSGeo family. Very simple. Start reading the mailing lists. Start replying to the mailing lists. Start contributing, or go, what you did already, go to a conference, a FOSS4G conference. A next step is go to a code sprint. People will ask you, can you do that? And everybody can do some things. And the next code sprint, okay, that's an old slide, is now Friday and Saturday here on this conference. You can become a member of OSGeo. First of all, you don't have to be a member to get involved. We are an inclusive organization. But what is important is the membership is free. You can only become a member as an individual, as a person. It's free and it's easy. It's just registering on the website. So if this is your first FOSS4G conference and you liked the atmosphere and you want to know more, well, you can start with trying out the software. You can start with doing everything I said. And then depending on who you are, if you are a developer, you can go to a code sprint, you can contribute to projects. But if you are a user, you can also go to a code sprint. But you can also contribute to projects. You can also write documentation. You can write testimonials or user experience or explain why you changed to open source software. I don't go through the whole list, but if you are a manager or an entrepreneur, the presentation will be online. Everybody can do some things. If you are from government, if you are from academia, if you are a researcher. Just to give you an idea, this is a big community. We have more, this is a 1-year-old slide. I think we have more than 30,000 unique subscribers. We have more than 290 mailing lists. And this gives an idea about how the mailing lists are spread. So they are well read by a lot of people. So we have an active community. We are also well organized. We have a board. This is a board of 2 years ago. We have 9 board members. We have from the board we have contact with officers from the several committees and projects. We have foundation projects, we have local chapters, we have charter members, we have members. Everything is indicated on the website. What do we want to do in the future? Just one more thing. The future actually was the most uncertain part of my presentation. But the future is what we want. It's what you want. OSGeo is a duocracy, which means everybody can take initiatives. And positive initiatives will be followed by others. So I think we should become more organized in Europe. And if we want to do this, we will need help. We will need volunteers to help. So the future is you, and you can get involved very easily because the next OSGeo meeting starts not in this room, but in the Palazzo within 3/4 of an hour. Thank you for your attention. Any questions, remarks, comments? Yes?
Hi. I liked your presentation because I think it covers a lot of things that we haven't covered in other presentations. I just wanted to remark that it's true that this meeting we have now is going to work as assembly of the European chapter, but don't think that we are going to talk only about the European chapter. This is the a general OSGeo member meeting, so even if if you have something to discuss that is not specifically related to Europe, this can be also discussed. And I want to encourage all of you to come to the meeting because I think it's important that you can, it's one of the best ways to have, to know what you think we should do in OSGeo and maybe to participate. We have a lot of things that everyone can do. You don't need to be an expert, and just wanted to invite you to come. Don't leave, don't run away.
So actually, Maria's right. There's only one OSGeo, but we are organized in several local chapters because that's more easy to organize ourselves. But OSGeo is just one big family over boundaries and over globally. Other remarks or questions?
No questions? For the new people, you don't want to ask something about OSGeo? This is time.
Okay, then I think we can close this session. Thank you. Yeah. There is a question?
Thank you. I need some time to think about my question. Right? I've seen you telling that it's OSGeo-Europe is 1 year old now.
Yeah.
Can you just give a couple of sentences what happened in this year with?
Yes, I had the intention to do that in the other meeting, but no
Okay,
problem.
no,
I will do that. I think it's important. Thank you for your question. Actually, I introduced already the couple of things we did in the presentation. I will repeat them. One of the things we did was the initiative of OSGeo Live. So we organized in the Bond Code Sprint and we invited people from the GRC and people, data providers, to come to the Bond Code Sprint. I introduced them with the people from the projects, and we tried to start the first drafts of OSGeo Live, the new release. We started with an initiative to outreach, not to FOSS4G, but to other conferences. So the example I showed is the first example that we are working out now with a couple of people who were interested and reacted on the mail. So if that is a successful event, I will report back on that so we can discuss. And I try to recuperate the marketing material so that we can reuse it with partners who are interested. So if you think about conferences in your domain, where you think there we should be as a company or as an administration or as a government, please contact me. I'll try to create a group, an ecosystem. I think it's important that if we outreach as OSGeo, we do it together as individuals belonging to different, what I call icons in the ecosystem, and then everybody can tell his story and be there on the presence. The principle is very simple. We do cost sharing very transparently. Every party pays the same amount, and I try to make the budget correct. And I think it's a very good way to outreach to the 99% of people not knowing open source and giving the opportunity to get to know us. Are there other things? Yes, we had a couple of, I tried to set up a couple of meetings, but there was not so much response. I have the opinion that on events like this, it's much, and in the code sprint, and it's much more easy to discuss what we should do. We are not so operational online. And I think that is also a point I want to address in the next meeting. We should learn to do that, because I think we need more. There are a lot of people interested, but we need also IDs and people wanting to do the IDs, just like in the software community. Other, is this gives this an idea? And what we need is a website. I think we have some work to do there.
Yes, no, it answers it. I've seen the slides where you were talking about OSGeo Live, and that I was kind of thinking, because I sometimes lose pieces in the mailing lists, but I've lost the getting born of all this, and I think it's an extremely important thing. And so I was wondering how this is moving on. But
well, another
you made
thing,
your point,
another thing actually that cost me a lot of time is, well, we set up an account. We set up the organization, the legal system. So I had 22 signatures all over Europe and outside of Europe. It took almost 6 months to process that on a legal way, because from every individual, I think for security reasons, they want to know, because you belong to a legal organization, they want to know who you are. We have an account, which was easy. We have now a grass account also. One of the problems there is that if somebody from the Czech Republic wants to have the way to use that account, he has to put his signature physically to a bank, which is terrible. So luckily we have a community where there are also people from in the neighborhood who could set their signature, and in that way we could solve that. But there are a lot of things to solve in a European context. We are not yet one big economical area, that's for sure. Okay. Other questions, remarks? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dirk, for a very nice presentation. I was thinking a while if this is a real topic or just like my impression. I have a feeling still that it's very nice when we are encouraging new people to join free software, join all those activities, but by my personal experience, it looks like that what you presented, start reading mailing lists, start contributing this way, that way, it looks like a lot of work, which can be attractive when you are young and you have free time and whatever. And that comes to my experience that I've seen a lot of people with huge talent and lost after that first period of time when they tried to do something and they were quite successful. Then they started to ask those questions like how I'm going to earn money, and I'm just like spending a lot of time on things which are not giving any like money to me, and I can't eat that software. So I have a feeling that there is a very big or like some significant gap or some help needed if we want to attract newcomers. I would say I've seen at least 1 dozen of people which just like stopped doing anything because any attempt led anywhere. So thanks.
Thank you for your remark. I think it's very important. I want to tell something I observed during this year. So we are an NGO now, non-for-profit organization, only with volunteers, without any paid people on board. And as you say, there are a lot of very experienced people. Another thing we tried to do is, for instance, there are people here who are maintaining code that is used by people from ESA. There's no way to get a subscription or a support contract and to pay these developers. And these developers are really are people from our community. When I looked around, just in Belgium, there is also a non-for-profit organization which called Agoria. And Agoria is an organization that represents the industry, a bit like Location Tech. Don't want to use the word too much, but they are representing the industry. Now, what is remarkable is that Belgium is a small country, only 10 million people. So it's an NGO, and they have 250 paid experts. Just for a part, it's only the make industry. And that are only the experts. And then they have a whole other organization. And okay, there, it's the industry that pays a membership. I believe that OSGeo, one of the things that is very important in OSGeo is that's an individual organization. So I think that is very important. But think on that, it's not Belgium, it's Europe. We are, I think, if we count all the experts in OSGeo together in Europe, I think in that model, and you extrapolate it, we could all be paid by the industry, the software industry in Europe. And we can act as an organization to help the software industry in Europe. Just an idea. Maybe we should discuss that later, but that is what we are talking about. We are trying to do it all voluntarily. So I follow you, but I find it very important because we are doing things voluntarily. This gives an amazing energy, and this gives opportunities that you don't have in another situation. So I think it's good that industry is sponsoring OSGeo. It's good, it's good that we have users, and I think we should try to use the success of OSGeo to become smarter and to create the next way of people collaborating. But I think money can't be an issue. We should find a problem for money. That should be no issue.
I was more talking about young people which are just like growing now, newcomers. I understand that once you pass some level of maturity, then maybe you have opposite problem that you don't know which you have a lot of work and a lot of paid work, and you can live very well. But if we want to attract other people, young people now, which probably 1 year ago they didn't even know that something like free software exists, then they learn something in their school. What I was saying is that a lot of those very skilled people are somewhere lost on a track, and they would rather sign with some company and they would develop some Java stuff proprietary for Oracle. That's money, secure. They will give them 3 weeks of leave and other benefits, and that's we will lose those people forever.
I follow that also, and I think that, well, we have the tools to avoid that. We have Geo for All to convince these young people from the university, starting their career, to getting to know the software. And then I think OSGeo should help also in getting more money injected in that OSGeo in the open source ecosystem. And if there is more money injected in the open source ecosystem, more young people will find challenges to do a job in that ecosystem. So I think we should think how we can promote that and how we can work on that. But I think it's a very important issue. I agree.
Just to remind people that OSGeo does have a jobs list. One of our mailing lists is for job adverts and for job requests. So if you've got jobs going in your organization, send them out. Just that, the volume of messages on that list is not very high at the moment, and it probably should be more. It should be higher. I know a lot of open source companies that are hiring that aren't using that mailing list, and I think if we actually make an effort to post things to that list, more people will think, oh, I could actually make a living doing this. I'll send you the address.
Yeah, if you're worried if this is open source is going to give less money to business than closed proprietary license, the thing is open source has the same potential in business as proprietary license, and even more because the more companies and more people working with open source and spreading it, and the more volume of users there are, and the more use cases we cover, then more money is there. So why move to proprietary license then? I mean, I think there is a lot of potential here if you want to look from that perspective. But that will be another full roundtable or talk or something.
Hi. Thank you for a nice presentation, Kirk. As we talked on lunch the other day, you mentioned on your sketch the stack item. You mentioned education, and you mentioned also government. Okay, I think OSGeo should think about government initiatives. There is OSGeo for All, for education. Is there anything for government? I don't know about it. Talking about money, I think it's interesting to think about other initiatives. Free Software Foundation Europe as an ongoing initiative. It's very important. We should talk here. Public money, public software. It's a source of money that should be mentioned and think about it, because it's a huge base for sustainability of the free software initiative.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I mentioned it a bit. There is always open source. The last 30 years was successful, and then other industry competed open source again. If you think at Esri 10 years ago, it's thanks to the actions in open source that Esri improved his software, because should open source not be there, Esri should be not so good as they are today. I think that's a positive statement. Yesterday in the talk, you mentioned that Autodesk and Esri are now joining forces, BIM and GIS. Another initiative, for instance, Google with Google Maps and Google Navigation has a very good way to reach out to communities and to ask people to help them to improve the data. This was exactly what OpenStreetMap was doing. So the problem is, or the fact is, that Google closes down his quality data and just serve people, and it's a single company initiative. I think what we can, or what we should change, and why OSGeo is important, is because it's not a single entity organization. We are a community. We are part of society. And I think software, but also data, is so important and will become very important in the future that we should think about how can we become the owner again of our own services, our own data, our own software. And there I think we should play a small role as OSGeo, and then I think we should create partnerships with other open organizations to create and to collaborate and create a stronger initiative. But I think we should act, and it goes very fast. In the past, open source always went back and was very competitive. I believe that also today we are with so many good people with all these positive elements together. I think we can beat and go for an open society. Yeah. Okay. So we close down this session, and within 20 minutes we have the meeting in the Palazzo.
In the Palazzo nearby. So this practical stuff. The Palazzo is the building nearby, the old building next to this building. Also, we have the gala dinner for the ones that subscribe. It's a restaurant called Histórico. We already updated the website with the link, so we can find the location. And tomorrow we have the closing session at 5, and at 5:30 we have a party. We have the 10th anniversary of the Portuguese OSGeo chapter, and some of us, like me, Miguel, Danilo, Ricardo, and so on, we are still alive, so we need to celebrate the 10th anniversary while we are still alive. So after the closing session, we'll have a party. You are free to come as in free speech, to drink free beer as in free beer. So. Thank you very much.